For decades, Mexico has been a powerhouse in the global auto industry, building millions of cars for American and Canadian roads. But now, Mexico is quietly becoming a critical player in the electric vehicle revolution. This isn't just about assembling cars, it's about building the high-tech, battery-powered vehicles that will define our future. Mexico's skilled workforce, supplier network, and free trade access to the U.S. have created the perfect conditions for this transformation. Major automakers have invested billions to retool Mexican plants for EVs, and these factories now produce some of the most popular electric vehicles sold in the U.S. In 2024 alone, Mexico exported around 170,000 battery electric vehicles to the U.S. About 13% of all new EVs sold there. From wiring harnesses to battery modules, Mexican factories handle critical steps in the EV supply chain. This deep integration has made North America's auto industry more efficient, but also more vulnerable. Mexico's proximity, manufacturing expertise, and trade agreements have made it indispensable. But as we reach late 2025, this seamless system faces its biggest challenge in a generation. The future of North American EVs now hinges on how Mexico adapts to a rapidly changing landscape. The stakes have never been higher. What's changing? One word: tariffs. In April 2025, the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on all vehicles imported from Mexico and Canada, a dramatic shift in trade policy. The goal: protect American jobs and bring manufacturing back to the U.S. But the modern auto industry is deeply interconnected. Parts and vehicles cross borders multiple times before reaching dealerships. This new tariff disrupts the entire system, adding thousands of dollars to the price of a typical EV. Automakers now face a tough choice: absorb the cost or pass it on to consumers. Either way, the price of cars is going up, and the rules of the game have changed overnight. The decision to erect this tariff wall has triggered a chain reaction, forcing automakers to rethink their entire North American strategy. The era of seamless, affordable cross-border car production is over. The industry is entering a new, more expensive era. As US and Canadian automakers scramble, China is making a bold move. Chinese EV companies, blocked by US tariffs, are building factories in Mexico to access the American market through the USMCA trade deal. In just 5 years, the number of Chinese businesses in Mexico has skyrocketed from 2,000 to over 20,000. Major brands like BYD and Great Wall Motors are setting up massive plants and supplier networks across Mexico. Their strategy meets USMCA rules, so their cars count as Mexican, bypassing US tariffs on Chinese goods. This nearshoring gamble could flood the US with affordable Chinese EVs, challenging American automakers on their own turf. The very tariffs meant to keep China out may be opening a back door through Mexico. The race is on to navigate a maze of trade rules and international politics, and right now, China is playing the game with remarkable skill. For Detroit's Big Three, Ford, GM and Stellantis, the new tariffs are a nightmare. They've invested billions in Mexican plants betting on stable, tariff-free trade. Now flagship EVs like the Ford Mustang Mach-E, built exclusively in Mexico, face a 25% import tax. Ford must choose raise prices and lose ground to rivals, or absorb the cost and lose profits. GM faces the same dilemma with its Blazer and Equinox EVs, also made in Mexico. About 2.7 million vehicles are exported from Mexico to the US each year. Prices for these cars are set to rise sharply. The dream of affordable American-branded EVs is slipping away. Automakers must decide, abandon their Mexican investments and move production to the US. A costly, years-long process, or weather the storm and hope the tariffs are temporary. There are no easy answers, and the stakes for both companies and consumers are enormous. The future of Detroit's EV ambitions hangs in the balance. The industry is at a crossroads. The new tariffs aren't just hitting Mexico, they're shaking Canada too. Canada's auto industry is tightly linked to the US, with parts and vehicles flowing seamlessly across the border. The 25% tariff on Canadian vehicles was a shock, threatening hundreds of thousands of jobs. Canadian officials are urgently lobbying for an exemption, arguing they're partners, not competitors. The tariffs put Canadian and American workers in direct competition, undermining decades of cooperation. Canada now faces tough choices: retaliate, negotiate, or adapt. The uncertainty is already making companies rethink investments in Canada. The country is caught in a trade battle it didn't start and doesn't want. The future of Canada's auto sector and its relationship with the US is suddenly in question. The ripple effects are being felt across the continent. With the old trade rules gone, automakers are scrambling to adapt. The 25% tariff is forcing companies to consider radical moves, shifting production, overhauling supply chains, and even abandoning billion-dollar investments in Mexico. Honda and Toyota are already exploring moving production to the US to avoid tariffs, but it's costly and time-consuming. Detroit automakers face even tougher choices: move EV production out of Mexico or risk massive losses. Companies are pressuring suppliers to relocate, creating a domino effect throughout the industry. Some foreign automakers, like those from South Korea, are ramping up US investments to sidestep tariffs. The battery market is in chaos too. High tariffs on Chinese cells mean a scramble for American-made batteries, but supply can't keep up. Shortages and higher prices are likely, making EVs even less affordable. The winners will be those who adapt fastest. The losers risk being left behind. The industry is being forced to reinvent itself on the fly. The scramble is on. What does all this mean for you? Expect higher car prices, especially for EVs. A car that once cost $40,000 could now be $50,000, slowing EV adoption for many families. The tariffs are meant to create US manufacturing jobs, but the transition will be rocky. In the short term, American workers tied to cross-border supply chains could be hurt, while Mexican and Canadian jobs are at risk if factories close. The economic map of North America is being redrawn. The goals strengthen US manufacturing and compete with China, but the strategy could backfire, raising prices, disrupting supply chains, and straining alliances. The winners will be those who adapt, the losers, those left behind by change. The road ahead for North America's auto industry will be bumpy. We're all along for the ride.